It's one of the saddest chapters of child abuse in the history of Southern California.
The 13 Turpin children suffered horrific abuse, not only from their biological parents, but later at the hands of their foster parents as well. One man led the charge to save them in both cases. In an Eyewitness News exclusive, Inland Empire Bureau Chief Rob McMillan spoke with the investigator those children call their hero.
I don't know what you would describe as far as torture goes, but that 5-year-old girl was being tortured on a daily basis.
Riverside County Sheriff's investigator Thomas Salisbury, now retired, sharing details of the physical and emotional abuse many of the Turpin siblings suffered at the hands of their foster parents, Marcelino, Rosa, and Lenise Olguin, who were recently sentenced for their crimes.
Given sleeping pills, made to stand in a little tape square. If she started to fall asleep, they'd spray her with a water bottle. They ring a cowbell. If she went down to the ground, sometimes they'd kick her and stuff.
Salisbury was very familiar with the Turpin siblings. He was the investigator assigned to the original case back in early 2018, when the Turpin siblings were rescued after suffering more than a decade of abuse at this Paris house of horrors at the hands of their biological parents, David and Louise Turpin.
That case was on a holiday weekend. A lot of people were gone, so I ended up with one brand new detective who had been a school resource officer.
Salisbury remembers vividly taking the 13 siblings to the Paris station for their first interviews back in early 2018.
I've never thought as freedom as a right until I walked in that station, and our Paris station is square with a quad yard in the middle, and they're literally out there walking around with their arms out, soaking up the sun.
He was the first to interview the parents, who later admitted to chaining their children to their beds.
How long did the chaining go on? And she just looked at me, and I was like, a few hours? No response. One day? No response. Couple weeks? Couple months? Okay, it was way longer than that, but let me explain. And at that point in my mind, I couldn't fathom any explanation she could come up with that would make sense.
The Turpins would later plead guilty, sentenced to life in prison. Several of the Turpin siblings ended up in foster care.
There were a lot of professionals involved. Some of the ones involved I had 100% trust in, and I believed them when they told me everything was fine. Yeah, there's minor issues, but no biggie, nothing to worry about, just normal kid feeling bad problems. And so I'd always hoped that's all it was.
But it wasn't. Jordan Turpin, who was the one who escaped from her biological parents' home one dark morning in early 2018, would then leave the Olguin's foster home as well, making a similar cry for help, this time to a juvenile advocate. The meeting was supposed to last 30 minutes, but lasted 4 hours.
They don't lie. They might not tell you the truth because they're scared to tell you the truth, but they're not going to lie to you, and if you get them in the right place with the right people, they'll open up.
That's when Salisbury decided to investigate the foster home for himself.
As a human, I want to go right over there, but as a detective, I had to verify.
But despite the allegations, he said Riverside County officials did not want to remove the Turpin children from the home.
I even explained to him, look, I'm a detective. I know if I was talking to someone, I know you might not know me, but I've got 40 years of law enforcement. I've been to all the child abuse training. I'm not saying I'm all that in a bag of chips, but that's what needs to happen. These kids need to be at least temporarily removed. No, we're not going to do it. I was like, well, here's what's going to happen now. You're forcing my hand. I'm going to get arrest warrants and search warrants, and I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to arrest these people.
Which is exactly what happened.
And that's when they admitted to all the crimes. I mean, almost every single crime we articulated here.
But the question remains, why weren't they removed from the house by county officials much earlier?
I think part of it was they didn't want to be wrong.
What happened in that home was worse than what happened in their biological parents' home.
Some of the Turpin siblings are now suing Riverside County. At a recent news conference, attorney Elon Zexter calling Thomas Salisbury a hero.
He was the only one that once again listened to the Turpins when they were crying out for help. Not CPS, not ChildNet.
If he hadn't done what he did, it's my feeling we would not be here.
The Turpin's attorneys call you a hero.
No, I'm far from that. If anyone is, it's these kids, because they survived a lot more than I ever could.
Riverside County recently released a statement to Eyewitness News that read, in part, quote, "The trauma this family endured is heartbreaking. We remain committed to their well-being and their lifelong journey of healing. The county is dedicated to continuous quality improvement, and we are constantly reviewing our practices, procedures, and policies." As for Salisbury, he only hopes the Turpin siblings can finally move on.
I just did my job, and I wasn't going to hesitate to do my job.
In Riverside, Rob McMillan, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.